Imagine the following scene from the Gospel called Luke. Jesus is giving a sermon in the synagogue. How do you picture it? Is Jesus behaving like a modern Jewish rabbi? Is he wearing a kippah, what later Yiddish culture will call a yarmulke? Perhaps you've been to service at a local Jewish synagogue. Do you think what is going on in Luke chapter 4 is like that? If so, think again, because if you imagine it that way, you are being grossly anachronistic. It wasn't like that at all. Language does not acquire meaning from lexica, dictionaries, or etymologies. Instead, all language, including biblical language, derives its meaning from the social system. We 21st century Westerners belong to an extremely different social system than that of biblical peoples. And we Western 21st century people indeed know Jews and Jewish beliefs and Jewish practices. But Jewish scholars like Shia Cohen and Jacob Neusner remind us that contemporary Jewish beliefs and practices are rooted in the formation of the Talmud. We are talking about the 6th century Common Era. The process of the evolution of the Talmud took centuries and happened after Jesus and the first Jesus groups, probably beginning around 90 Common Era. Some Jewish practices, like the bar mitzvah and especially the bat mitzvah, have no root in the Hebrew Bible or in New Testament times. Both John the Baptist and Jesus were called rabbis. Do you think that they were Jewish rabbis? It wasn't until long after their time that rabbis, as we now know and understand them, and the synagogue as a place of worship began to evolve. In the context of John the Baptist and Jesus, rabbi meant nothing more than a term of respect. It was a respectful, honorable way of addressing a great one, like important teachers. It derives from the Hebrew word rab, meaning Lord or Master. Rabbi today is an official position and title. This developed long after Jesus' day. Scholar Heather McKay has demonstrated convincingly that it was not until long after New Testament times, really not until 200 Common Era, that synagogues became places of worship. Synagogue never means Jewish synagogue whenever encountered in the Bible. In the first century, synagogue is not a place of worship. Think about Paul arguing for 3 weeks in a synagogue. Does that sound like a place of worship? It's more like a hostel or hangout place for Israelite males. There they hung out and did what Mediterranean males do everywhere in their hangout places. Talk, cuss, spit, get into fights, and argue about politics, in this case, the political text called the Torah. Israelite males did not gather there for services because no worship services existed at this time in synagogues. And in the first century, the Sabbath was a day of rest, not a day of worship. The Sabbath became a day of worship, and synagogues evolved to be places of worship when some Israelites reacted to the practice of Messianic Israelites in Palestinian Yahwism, anachronistically called Christians. These Messianists assembled to celebrate the Lord's Supper on the 7th day. A reaction to this caused an evolution. You know, we really should stop thinking of first century Israelites as either Jews or Christians. There were none at that time. As Rosemary Radford Ruther pointed out decades ago, it wasn't until the 4th century that Judaism and Christianity assumed the features by which they are known today. Jewish scholar Daniel Boyarin agrees, calling both Judaism and Christianity twins in the womb, developing until their birth in the 4th century. So there really is nothing Jewish or Christian about the New Testament. I mean, you could say the New Testament is Christian in its canonization, but that's about it. There's nothing Jewish or Christian about the New Testament's rabbis or synagogues. The Hebrew word Yehudim and the Greek word Judaioi should be properly translated Judeans, not Jews. The contemporary English word Jew is traced linguistically to the Middle English period, that's around 1200 Common Era, and it derives from the Old French, ultimately back to Latin, Greek, and Hebrew roots, but it is inappropriate as a translation of the Greek and the Hebrew to call Jesus a Jew or a Christian, as these words are understood in the vernacular today, not only confuses the matter historically, but has led to disastrous social and interreligious consequences.